Secretary General António Guterres, Speaker of the House Ulisses Correia, Prime Minister Ulisses Correia e Silva, Prime Minister António Costa, Ministers, ladies and gentlemen, First Lady, Ambassadors, former President of Seychelles, the Ocean Race Chairman Richard Brisius, Excellencies, sailors, partners, ladies and gentlemen, dear friends, welcome. Good morning and bon dia. Welcome to the Ocean Race Summit Mindelo. My name is Danny Washington. I'm your host for the summit today, and it's an honor to be here with you. I'm a TV presenter and marine biologist from sunny Miami, Florida, and I first began my journey studying marine biology and then transitioned into amplifying stories about science as well as nature on national television and online media. Much of my work has also focused on elevating youth leadership in ocean conservation. I've been working with the Ocean Race since 2020, and I am extremely pleased to be here with you today. This is also my very first time here in Cabo Verde, and I'm intrigued by this majestic archipelago filled with vibrant people, tropical culture, and beautiful beaches. I will say I've had lots of people come up to me and speak Creole. I don't speak Creole yet, but I plan to practice. As a woman with Jamaican heritage, spending time in other brilliant island nations around the world brings me the most joy. I'd especially like to extend gratitude to each of you for warmly welcoming the Ocean Race here for this momentous occasion. I hope you enjoyed the music and the music video that played just before the start. It was developed by local NGO, Biosfera, and we'll have the pleasure of speaking to their president, Tommy Mello, later in our program. This is the 15th in our series of Ocean Race Summits, thanks to 11th Hour, one of the race's premier partners and our founding partner of our sustainability program. We're pleased to hold this event here in cooperation with the government of Cabo Verde. The Ocean Race has had the pleasure of working with the team, with the government of Cabo Verde, to bring the race here, as well as working together toward the adoption of a universal Declaration of Ocean Rights. The Declaration provides a developed and stronger moral framework for the relationship between humankind and the ocean. What I admire most about the Ocean Race is that this global sporting event has positioned itself and prioritized sustainability in a way that I've never seen before, integrating concepts of lifestyle choices as well as ways to be more conscious about the overall well-being of the planet and people. This is our very first stopover after our official start in Alicante, Spain, and this is the very first time the race has ever been to a West African country. Often, the sailors, they say that they see Cabo Verde on their way down the Atlantic, and some have even been rescued by the Cape Verdean community, which is so fantastic for us to be here today, finally in person with you. As we travel around the world, we are aiming to help raise the voice of the ocean, our ocean, that connects all of us. We want to cultivate solutions to elevate the importance of protecting the blue heart of our planet. Small island developing states, or as I prefer to call them, big ocean states, like Cape Verde, deserve to be at the forefront of the conversation about the future health of our ocean. My family in Jamaica taught me the importance of not only respecting people no matter where they come from, but more importantly, honoring and appreciating everything that the natural world provides for us, to human beings. And we, human beings, out of many, are one people. We're here and we're so delighted that Cabo Verde is on this journey with us and we're supporting the recognition of ocean rights. We have an exciting lineup of speakers joining us talking all things ocean, from mindset to marine protection. And I hope today that you're gonna carry this insightful information beyond the doors behind you and take action for the ocean, advocate for the ocean with renewed energy. The time to act is right now, and we need everyone involved to help us move forward. Before we dive in, I'd like to thank Imar and Giomar for hosting us here at this beautiful space, the Ocean Science Center Mindelo, and I'd like to invite Vito Ramos, who's a member of the Board of Directors of Instituto do Mar, as well as Professor Dr. Katia Mateus, Director of Giomar Helmholtz Center for Ocean Research, Kiel, to say a few words about all of the interesting research and initiatives happening here at the Ocean Science Center Mindelo. Please welcome Vito Ramos and Katia Mateus.
Last week, a friend asked me on the street why the ocean race may stop, the first one here in Cabo Verde. And the reason why so many important people are traveling to be here with us during this stop of the ocean race. In my attempt to answer him, I was thinking about the responsibility that we have related to the ocean. Small island, but with a vast exclusive economic zone and geographically located in the center of the Atlantic Ocean. It never hurts to emphasize that we have 99.3% sea. This conversation with my friends, made me very proud, and I want to welcome all of you. Welcome the Ocean Race to the Ocean Science Center Mindelo, to Instituto do Mar, and to Cabo Verde. The Instituto do Mar is invested in the National Technical Authority in the field of marine research, mainly in the areas of marine and fisheries biology, oceanography, aquaculture, technological development, and fisheries statistics. You are aware of the great challenge we face in this whole of preserving our marine resources and the ocean in general, and our contribution to the United Nations Ocean Decade. We know that the ocean literacy is very low. We have limitations in terms of financial, material, and human resources. And we are aware that this is only possible for us to fully play our role through good cooperations, both national and international, with all of you. A great example of this are these facilities, this building, the Ocean Science Center Mindelo, which is the result of an excellent cooperation between two institutes, Instituto do Mar and our German partner, Geomar, which support marine research and education, both nationally and internationally. We are focused on having a common vision regarding the ocean, its preservation, and its health. We are aware also of all the goods and services that the ocean provides to the humanity. And our survival as human beings depends on these goods and services.
Bon dia and welcome here at the OCM. Secretary General António Guterres, Speaker of the House Ulisses Correia, Prime Minister Ulisses Correia e Silva, Ministers, First Lady, Ambassadors, former President of the Seychelles, the Ocean Race Chairman Richard Rizius, Excellencies, sailors, partners, ladies and gentlemen, dear friends. This place may seem remote to those of you who arrived here from all over the world. But where are we actually? We are at the center of our most important life support system, our ocean. The ocean is the most important element in the climate system and our partner in our fight against climate change. The ocean is home to a vast biodiversity. It feeds us and it supports our livelihoods, which is something we are crucially aware of, especially here in Cabo Verde and the West African region. Our future on this planet depends on the ocean. To safeguard this future, we need to protect the ocean and keep it healthy. This requires a deep understanding, ocean observation, and joint knowledge production across regions and borders. GeoMar, as one of the world's leading institutions in marine research, dedicates its research to the well-being of the ocean and hence of our society. This intention also united the Instituto do Mar, IMA, and GeoMar as partners almost 20 years ago. Together, we set out to advance research and education in this region that is so important for each and every one of us. With the Ocean Science Center Mindelo, the OSCM, where we are sitting right now, we established a support and exchange platform that is available for the international scientific community and its stakeholders. The Ocean Race Summit truly highlights this function. At the Ocean Science Center Mindelo, it brings together science, politics, and society. So I'm very proud to welcome you at the OSCM today, together with my dear colleague, Vito Ramos, and invite you to learn more about the research, the dialogue, and the education that is happening here, to use these excellent facilities and to make this place bubble with life. And it's clearly not often that we have so many people here in this room. The Ocean Race and this event provide wonderful examples of how we act together. Participants of the regatta support ocean observation. And around the race, we exchange knowledge to foster ocean literacy. Our multilateral collaboration is the basis for our contributions to the United Nations Ocean Decade, including the efforts towards the Universal Ocean Rights Charter. In this sense, I wish all of you a successful event with fruitful encounters, lots of joint learning opportunities, and new ideas.
Thank you again, Vito and Katja. I couldn't think of a better place for us to host our summit. I think this is probably the closest proximity we've been to the ocean within all of our summits, having an eye view on it. It's beautiful. So thank you again for this space. Now I'm pleased to introduce to you our chairman of the Ocean Race, Richard Brisius, to say a few words.
Good morning, everyone. I'm sorry to say I have the best view here, both of you and the ocean, looking out through the back end of this building. But I'm honored to be here, and United Nations Secretary General António Guterres, Prime Minister of Cape Verde, the Speaker of the House, First Lady, former President of Seychelles, ambassadors, excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, and friends of the ocean. A warm welcome on behalf of all of us here to the Ocean Race Summit Cape Verde. And we are honored to be here at the Ocean Science Center in Mindelo, hosted by IMAR and GeoMar, as we just heard. And we are truly grateful to come together here today. And I really look forward to all of us doing our very, very best during these hours to do what we can to contribute towards a healthier ocean. And since 1973, the Ocean Race has been a race for teams around the world, run every 4 years. And this is a race where East meets West and North meets South on a course that spans over 30,000 miles of ocean. And the Ocean Race, it's about people, it's about performance, and it is about purpose. And our purpose in the Ocean Race is to motivate people to do the extraordinary for restoring ocean health. And when we look at the ocean, we do not see dividing areas. We see a common ground for the whole of mankind. And sport in general, and maybe round-the-world racing in particular, has a unique ability to bring people together and to showcase sustainable and good values, such as trust, care, and always doing our very best for ourselves and for the whole world that we live in. So let me allow me to start by acknowledging the achievements of each crew member who just finished the first leg of the Ocean Race from Alicante to Cape Verde. And the leg from Alicante to Cape Verde was a bit underestimated, I believe. It presented some of the finest yacht racing you can find in sport, but it also turned out to be much, much harder than any one of us could expect. And the sailors went through some of the toughest conditions you can experience when out at sea coming here. And you should know that while racing around the world, the sailors on these boats, they spend hours every day to study the weather, to find out where to find the best winds in order to make the boats go as fast as possible. And one thing you avoid at all costs is big storms, because they make you go slow, even if you have the wind from behind. And the number one thing you always avoid is to go against the wind into a big storm. But that's exactly what happened sailing here to Cape Verde, because in the Mediterranean Sea, as the fleet was heading towards Gibraltar Strait, a huge storm with hurricane force wind gust was sitting between the boats and the Gibraltar Strait, right in the middle. And with Morocco to port and Spain to starboard, there was no escape for the fleets. So the only way was to continue sail westwards and cut through the storm against the wind. And most ordinary sailors, including myself, would have given up and not to go against the wind. We would have gone with the wind. But thanks to these extraordinary crew members on these boats, and above all, their unmatched resilience, they didn't. They made it through the storm. They made it through Gibraltar Strait, not entirely unharmed. There were damages and a couple of injuries, but all boats, importantly, and crew members made it safely here to Cape Verde, and the final one is expected coming in here tonight, the Viva Mexico team. And this crew, they made it through this storm, and they will make it through a number of storms around the world because they are competent and experienced, because they are working in strong teams, and above all, because they believed that they could go through the storm and reach the Gibraltar Strait. Now, 2 days ago, in the middle of the night, the first boat came in here. It was a boat called Holcim. It arrived into Mindelo with a wonderful, warm welcome of the Cape Verdeans on this island. It was something I'd never seen before, the spirit that night. I was down on the dock, and I met the crew as they stepped off. And one of the crew members, I asked her when she stepped off the boat, how was it? And she's one of the most experienced. She's done a couple of laps around the world. She's been through a lot. And she looked me in the eyes and she said, "Richard, it was brutal. It was probably the most brutal sailing I've been through." And last week, I heard the Secretary General addressing the World Economic Forum saying that we are looking into the eye of a Category 5 hurricane. Our world is plagued by a perfect storm on a number of fronts. And most of these terrifying fronts referred to, I believe, are relatively well known amongst the participants in here today. But together, and above all, guided by your leadership, Secretary General, we as ocean racers believe that we can make it through this storm. We will not be unharmed. It's already brutal, and it will become even more brutal for many. But importantly, we need to change course. We need to change course immediately in order to try to reduce the impact of this perfect storm that the Secretary General so clearly has raised warnings about for a long, long time. And today is yet another opportunity for all of us to come together and change the course for the benefit of the ocean. So let's get all hands on deck now and let's move on to it. And when I grew up, my father and mother, they were really strong proponents of the United Nations. It was perceived in our house as the fundament of the hope for the modern world. And nothing was kind of more respected when it came to the future. And in our living room, in my hometown, Stockholm, we had a framed photo of Marc Chagall's Peace Window. That is a stained glass window in the UN headquarters in New York in memory of the late Secretary Dag Hammarskjöld. And this was a photo which my parents had brought with them home from the UN headquarters following a visit there. And it's interesting how this belief goes through generations. Now the belief in the United Nations is with me, and that peace window photo now hangs on my family's living room wall. And the heritage is very important. And my father and mother, they also took me out on the ocean when I was a small kid. And when I was 9, we sailed from the northern part of Europe, Sweden, down to Greece. And I guess since then I became a true ocean person. And in the wide Ocean Race family, many of who are here today and who we are all welcoming you to, we are ocean people, and we respect the ocean, and we care for the ocean. And we are passionately doing our best, our little best, whatever we can do with the means we have to contribute to a healthier ocean. And we do this by focusing on improving ocean science with the IOC UNESCO, with GeoMar, and many others. We do this by taking concrete climate action with UNFCCC and many others. We are increasing ocean literacy with children across the world. And we are respecting the ocean by acknowledging the inherent rights of the ocean. And what is the rights of the ocean? Well, to me, to have an ocean rights perspective in discussions and decision-making mean that we, in a very natural way, will link our policies to the fundament of our history and our future. And with an ocean rights perspective, we will make better decisions for future generations. And with an ocean rights perspective, I hope we will base those decisions on the reality that humans are merely one of many species on this planet, and that we are intimately interconnected to nature and the ocean, where the ocean is the mothership and the ocean is the powerhouse on this planet. Now, as I mentioned, in ocean racing, speed is fundamental for success. And when we make decisions, we always ask ourselves, will it make the boat go faster? And with an ocean rights perspective, we will always ask ourselves, will it make the ocean healthier for the benefit of all? And in closing, I'd ask to say that to be a skipper on a round-the-world race boat is a hard and sometimes very lonely role. And being the Secretary General of the United Nations is certainly much harder. And to lead a nation, even a wonderful nation such as Cape Verde, is definitely harder as well. But to succeed as leaders, we need to be resilient, like the sailors in the ocean race. We must keep going. We can never give up. And maybe recall what the late Secretary General Dag Hammarskjöld said: never measure the height of a mountain until you have reached the top. Then you will see how low it was. And we have a perfect storm around us, and we must change course, and we must prepare and brace for the impact of the storm. But under your leadership, we really believe we can do it, and we must do it. And rest assured that you have the Ocean Race family ready on deck as your crew. And just like all of you in here today, we all dream. We all dream of a bright future for our grandchildren and for this planet. And my sincere belief is that the greatest of dreams are never achieved alone. They are achieved together. So let's do that. And thank you all for being here today. And let's do the best of the day. And let's stay positive. And again, a really warm welcome. Thank you.
Now I have the distinct pleasure of welcoming a true ocean rights advocate who has been an outspoken supporter of the idea of a universal declaration of ocean rights for a very long time. His Excellency Prime Minister Silva highlighted the need for a universal declaration of ocean rights in his official speech at the United Nations Ocean Conference in Lisbon, June of last year. And we are extremely honored that he could be here with us today. Please join me in warmly welcoming His Excellency Prime Minister Ulisses Correia e Silva.
Minhas senhoras, meus senhores, Senhora Secretária-Geral das Nações Unidas, António Guterres, Senhor Presidente da Assembleia Nacional, Ulisses Correia, Senhoras e Senhores membros do Governo, Senhora Primeira-Dama, Senhoras e Senhores deputados, Antigo Presidente da República de Seychelles, caro Danny Ford, Senhor Presidente da Câmara Municipal de São Vicente, substituto, Senhora Presidente da Assembleia Municipal de São Vicente, Senhor Presidente da Associação Nacional dos Municípios de Cabo Verde, Senhores Presidentes das Câmaras Municipais de outros municípios do país, Senhores Embaixadores, representantes de organizações internacionais. I'd like to welcome all of you to Mindelo and to the Ocean Race Summit. The Ocean Race and this summit represents a special moment to this island and Cabo Verde. We did it with professionalism and passion. I'd like to thank to the President of Ocean Race, Richard Brezius. We worked together for 3 years to prepare this summit, and it is happening. We show that together we can be stronger. And for now, headphones are required for the rest of my speech. It will be in Portuguese. Permitam-me distinguir a participação nesta cimeira do Secretário-Geral das Nações Unidas, António Guterres. Cabo Verde tem muito apreço pela sua liderança. Nas várias frentes em que intervém, com muita convicção e sentido de responsabilidade. Mudanças climáticas, oceanos, segurança sanitária, segurança alimentar, paz, migrações, multilateralismo, reformas do sistema das Nações Unidas, financiamento ao desenvolvimento, a especificidade dos CITES, entre outras, diríamos que é tarefa para super-homem. Incentivamos-los a continuar na senda da nossa agenda comum e da chamada para a ação. Sou da Cimeira do Oceano, no momento em que Mindelo recebe a Ocean Race. Tem propósitos comuns, um forte compromisso com a causa da conservação e uso sustentável dos mares e dos oceanos. Cumprimento o presidente da Ocean Race, mais uma vez, Richard Brezius, e toda a equipa nacional e internacional que esteve envolvida na participação, na organização deste importante evento, que é muito exigente em termos de organização, em termos de logística, em termos de profissionalismo. E devemos reconhecer todo o empenho, porque este Cabo Verde, que é um pequeno estado insular, que tem sofrido crises muito fortes, não deixou nunca de ver para o futuro. E não deve deixar de ver para o futuro. As crises não nos podem condicionar. E a demonstração de termos colocado todo o empenho na organização destes eventos, a maior regata do mundo, a chegar a São Vicente, e esta cimeira do oceano diz tudo relativamente àquilo que deve ser a nossa ambição de desenvolvimento e colocar Cabo Verde dentro do quadro da notoriedade internacional. E gostaria de reconhecer todos os parceiros bilaterais e multilaterais de Cabo Verde, instituições financeiras internacionais, universidades, centros de investigação, ONGs, que têm apoiado em programas e projetos de transição energética, estratégia de água, ação climática e ambiental e economia azul. Realizamos esta cimeira em Cabo Verde num contexto de grave crise, crises mundiais, ao nível das mudanças climáticas, da perda de biodiversidade e da poluição. E estas crises afetam seriamente todos os países, mas afetam de uma forma particular as ilhas. A crise climática e ambiental é global. Resolvê-la é uma responsabilidade de cada um dos países e, ao mesmo tempo, de todos os países do mundo. Mas é uma responsabilidade maior para os países com maior cota de produção, de poluição e de efeitos nocivos às mudanças climáticas no mundo. É neste sentido que Cabo Verde manifesta a sua total adesão ao apelo do Secretário-Geral das Nações Unidas, apelo à ação para salvar os oceanos e proteger o futuro do planeta Terra. Colocamos justificadas expectativas na coligação dos pequenos Estados insulares em desenvolvimento pela natureza, criada com o objetivo de mobilizar meios para a implementação dos objetivos ambiciosos ao nível da biodiversidade. E colocamos expectativas elevadas no apelo Call for Action e acrescento Call for Action Now. Gostaríamos que os temas e os compromissos que a coligação pela natureza propõe fossem considerados na Cimeira do Futuro a ter lugar em setembro de 2023 e na próxima Conferência dos Oceanos das Nações Unidas em 2025. À semelhança dos demais CITES, somos defensores de um tratado internacional regulador legalmente vinculativo para o combate à poluição por plásticos. Cabo Verde subscreve na íntegra e vai se empenhar na implementação do quadro de biodiversidade global pós-2020, aprovado na COP15 da Convenção sobre a Biodiversidade Biológica realizada no Canadá. Gostaria de destacar a iniciativa conjunta de Cabo Verde, Mónaco e da organização de Ocean Race para a agenda global sobre os princípios dos direitos dos oceanos com vista à adoção, em 2030, de uma Declaração Universal dos Direitos dos Oceanos. A estratégia Cabo Verde é uma nação com mais de 5 séculos e meio de existência, localizada no prolongamento do Sahel, marcada desde sempre pela aridez e escassez hídrica. Se há palavra que caracteriza Cabo Verde é resiliência. Resiliência derivada da nossa capacidade de adaptação e de transformação da realidade ambiental, económica e social. Difícil, mas com fé e ambição, trabalho e orientação para o desenvolvimento. Resiliência que aguça o sentido de oportunidade. O sol e o vento, que há algumas décadas eram símbolos de estiagens, hoje são recursos para a produção de energias renováveis e redução da nossa dependência de combustíveis fósseis. A nossa meta é atingir 30% de produção de energia elétrica a partir de fontes renováveis até 2025 e ultrapassar os 50% em 2030. Atingir 100% de veículos elétricos em 2050 e melhorar significativamente os níveis de eficiência energética através de medidas de gestão, tecnologias e de consumos mais eficientes. O mar, que era símbolo de partida de imigração e de saudade, hoje representa turismo, água dessalinizada, economia azul, amarragem de cabos submarinos de fibra óptica, energia limpa, biotecnologia, aquicultura, indústria conserveira para exportação, centro de competências e serve também para eventos náuticos como o Ocean Race. Cabo Verde foi o primeiro país africano a adotar a Carta de Desenvolvimento Azul para de seguir elaborar o seu Plano Nacional de investimento para a economia azul, alinhado com o Plano Estratégico de Desenvolvimento Sustentável e com os Objetivos de Desenvolvimento Sustentável. Estamos a trabalhar para estabelecer brevemente as condições que permitem aumentar a área de proteção marinha no quadro do compromisso da Aliança Global para os Oceanos. A terra árida, que simbolizava seca e fome no passado, hoje potencia uma agricultura com base na dessalinização da água, reutilização de águas residuais tratadas e massificação da rega gota a gota, apoiada por energias renováveis e pela investigação aplicada. Potencia o ecoturismo, o turismo rural, através de montanhas, vales e vulcão. Este é um percurso existencial de resiliência, adaptação, superação e aproveito de oportunidades, com base em recursos endógenos que antes eram problemas e hoje são solução. O país continua situado na mesma localização, continua a sofrer as mesmas influências do Sahel, continua a ter impactos de mudanças climáticas que agravam a situação, mas nós vemos também o lado das oportunidades, adaptação, mitigação e transformação dessa mesma realidade para podermos ser mais resilientes. E gostaria de fazer uma referência à questão do financiamento, porque está sempre sobre a mesa. A estratégia de adaptação e de mitigação face às mudanças climáticas para responder às situações de emergência e aumentar a resiliência necessita de financiamento, com dimensão e consistência no tempo, para produzir transformações estruturais. Financiamento que inclui reforço de capacidades e de transferências de tecnologias. Financiamento e tempo de decisão são variáveis críticas. Os países em desenvolvimento estão colocados contra a parede, face a crises graves, com impactos económicos, sociais e humanitários, como tem sido a pandemia da Covid-19, emergências climáticas e ambientais e, mais recentemente, a guerra na Ucrânia. A dinâmica do crescimento económico reduziu, a dívida pública disparou e a pobreza aumentou em vários países africanos, derivada da situação das crises. E é neste contexto que é urgente operacionalizar os mecanismos e instrumentos de financiamento assumidos para apoiar as ações de mitigação e de adaptação face às mudanças climáticas. Ao mesmo tempo, criar condições para que o setor privado tenha condições institucionais e de financiamento favoráveis para investir em setores impactantes no aumento da resiliência e diversificação da economia. Considerando as especificidades dos CIDs, encorajamos o Secretário-Geral das Nações Unidas a seguir com determinação na construção do índice multidimensional de vulnerabilidade, para que seja adotado como critério relevante no acesso a financiamento a favor do desenvolvimento sustentável dos CIDs. Termino com a convicção de que temos que vencer este combate pelo planeta, pelos oceanos, por um mundo mais solidário. E como se costuma dizer, são as mulheres e os homens que fazem as coisas, com níveis de liderança diferenciados, mas são as mesmas mulheres e os homens que podem e têm que ter capacidade de fazer as transformações e dar-nos um mundo melhor. Muito obrigado.
Thank you so much, Your Excellency, Prime Minister Silva. We appreciate you being here. And indeed, we must take action now, especially for Cabo Verde and all island nations around the world. And thank you again for embracing us here at the Ocean Race in your spectacular country. We thank you for your leadership and your continued support of ocean rights. Now, I have the distinct pleasure of welcoming His Excellency, Secretary General of the United Nations, António Guterres, to give a keynote speech.
Excellencies, dear friends, all protocol observed, permitam-me que comece por exprimir ao Sr. Primeiro-Ministro Ulisses Correia e Silva a minha profunda gratidão pela extraordinária hospitalidade do Governo e do povo de Cabo Verde que tornaram possível esta etapa da Ocean Race. E também, sobretudo, agradecer-lhe o seu compromisso e o compromisso do seu país, de Cabo Verde, quer com a conservação e a valorização sustentável dos oceanos, quer com a ação climática, com um relevo particular pela sua liderança no conjunto dos pequenos estados insulares, quer pela proteção da biodiversidade. Senhor Primeiro-Ministro, muito obrigado. We gather on the shores of the mighty Atlantic Ocean today to celebrate something special, the inspiring courage of women and men sailing this grueling 6-month race around the world. And apparently it was particularly tough in the movement from Alicante to Cabo Verde. And it's also inspiring to know that every boat is carrying special equipment to gather scientific data to help ensure a healthy ocean for the future. Because in the face of climate change, plastic pollution, humanity has its own race to win. The race to protect our ocean for the future. The ocean supports the air we breathe, the food we consume, the culture and identities that define us, the jobs and prosperity that sustain us, the regulation of weather and climate, and billions of animals, plants, and microorganisms that call the ocean home. The ocean is life. The ocean is livelihoods, and the ocean is in trouble. Humanity has been waging a senseless and self-defeating war on nature, and the ocean is on the front lines of the battle, which means small island developing states like Cabo Verde are too in that front line. Around 35% of global fish stocks in the world are overexploited. Global heating is pushing ocean temperatures to new highs, fueling more frequent and intense storms, rising sea levels, and the salinization of coastal lands and aquifers. Once rich coral habitats are being bleached to oblivion. Mangrove forests are being destroyed, taking the species they host with them. And meanwhile, toxic chemicals and millions of tons of plastic waste are flooding into coastal ecosystems, killing or injuring fish, sea turtles, seabirds, marine mammals, and making their way into the food chain and ultimately being consumed by us. By 2050, there could be more plastic in the sea than fish. So, dear friends, the good news is that last year, the world took some important steps to correct our course. This includes the historic agreement in Nairobi to negotiate a globally binding treaty to control plastic pollution. It includes the World Trade Organization's agreement to end harmful fishery subsidies that so often result in illegal fishing. At the UN Ocean Conference in Lisbon, countries have made hundreds of new voluntary commitments and pledges to protect the ocean, a positive trend we hope will continue at this year's conference in Panama. And at the UN Biodiversity Conference in Montreal, countries agreed on a target to protect 30% of land, water, coastal, and marine ecosystems by 2030. Some have called 2022 the ocean's super year. But the race is far from over. We need to make 2023 a year of super action so we can end the ocean emergency once and for all. From effectively implementing the many legal and policy instruments related to the ocean, such as the United Nations Convention on the Law of the Sea, which turned 40 last year, to concluding the long overdue agreement on marine biological diversity of areas beyond national jurisdiction, which cover over 2/3 of our oceans, and whose last global gathering, unfortunately, did not manage to reach an agreement. We also need urgent action in 4 other fundamental ways. First, ending the ocean emergency requires sustainable maritime industries. This means smart, sustainable fishing practices, including aquaculture, to guarantee a strong seafood industry into the future. It means carefully managing and regulating development and resource extraction with precaution, protection and conservation at the core of all activities. It means the reduction and prevention of marine pollution from both land and sea-based sources. And it means public and private partners jointly investing in restoring and conserving coastal ecosystems such as mangroves, wetlands, and coral reefs. In this regard, countries can emulate Cabo Verde, whose marine conservation and protection ambitions are firmly embedded in the National Sustainable Development Strategy, Ambition 2030. Second, ending the ocean emergency means delivering massive support for developing countries living with the first and worst impacts of the degradation of our climate and ocean. Developing countries, and particularly the SIDS, are victims of a morally bankrupt global financial system designed by the rich countries to benefit the rich countries. Bias is baked into the system. It routinely denies developing countries, particularly vulnerable middle-income countries and small island developing states like Cabo Verde, the levels of concessional financing and debt relief that would be necessary. And I will continue urging leaders and international financial institutions to join forces and develop creative ways to ensure that developing countries can accept debt relief and concessional financing when they need it most. And this must include reallocating unused special drawing rights according to the needs of developing countries. I will keep pressing for an SDG stimulus package to help governments of the Global South invest in the systems that support development and resilience. And I will always stand with developing countries as they protect and reserve their ecosystems following decades and centuries of degradation and loss. Third, ending the ocean emergency means winning the race against the changing climate. And this is another race that humanity is currently losing. At a time when we must reduce greenhouse gas emissions to secure our future on this planet, we are on the verge of crossing the 1.5 degree limit that a livable future requires. Now is the time to deliver real action on climate. Deliver on the establishment of the Loss and Damage Fund that the world committed to at Sharm el-Sheikh. Deliver on the $100 billion commitment of developed countries to support developing states. Deliver on the promise to double adaptation finance. Deliver on closing the emissions gap, phasing out coal, and accelerating the renewable energy revolution. And deliver on a climate solidarity pact in which all countries, and particularly the biggest emitters, work to keep the 1.5 degree goal alive. Together with international financial institutions and the private sector, developed countries must provide financial and technical assistance to help major emerging economies transition to renewable energy. And I also call on ocean-based industries to follow the lead of the ocean race and limit their carbon footprints. For example, the shipping sector must commit to net zero emissions by 2050 and present credible plans to implement such a commitment. And I was very happy to learn that there is a solid program in Cabo Verde in relation to the reduction of emissions in the harbor activities that is also extremely relevant. And fourth, ending the ocean emergency means deploying science, technology and innovation on an unprecedented scale. We are now into the third year of the UN Decade of Ocean Science. By 2030, we must have achieved our goal of mapping 80% of the seabed. We must see new partnerships among researchers, governments and the private sector to support ocean research and sustainable ocean planning and management. We must see investment in state-of-the-art, climate-resilient coastal infrastructure from towns and villages to port installations. And to protect coastal communities and workers at sea from natural disasters, we must massively invest in technologies and capacities to reach our goal of ensuring universal global early warning systems coverage in the next 5 years. Dear friends, ending the ocean emergency is a race we must win. And by working as one, it is a race we can win. Let's rescue the Sustainable Development Goals, including the SDG 14. Let's all become the champions of ocean needs. Let's end the ocean emergency and preserve and value this precious blue gift for our children and grandchildren. Muito obrigado.
Muito obrigada. His Excellency, Mr. Secretary General, thank you very much for being here. We know you could have been anywhere else in the world today, but you chose to be with us, and we appreciate that. And we certainly look forward to all of the ways and strategies you'll implement to lead in ocean action to protect people and the planet. I think to achieve the ambitious goals that we have set toward 2030, it's going to require commitment. It will require to focus on what we value individually and collectively, and then shift our energy and our focus on what we want. What world do we want to build together? What's the vision, and how do we get there? Back in September of last year, during the United Nations General Assembly, His Serene Highness, Prince Albert of Monaco, graciously welcomed the Ocean Race Summit's team to his office in New York City to host a high-level conversation about ocean rights with several different representatives from different nations. Prince Albert also happens to be a supporter of Team Malizia Racing, and he supports the work being done right here in Cabo Verde with Geomar. His Serene Highness has graciously sent a special video message for today's summit.
Mr. President, Mr. Secretary General, dear António Guterres, Your Excellencies, authorities, ladies and gentlemen, dear friends of the ocean. Whilst I regret not being present with you in Mindelo, I'm delighted for the opportunity to share a few thoughts with you. As the 2023 edition of the Ocean Race just began, sailors embarked on one of the most challenging, demanding, and exciting sport competitions in the world. In that sense, reaching the finish line is a human adventure as much as it is a sport accomplishment. While they navigate around the world for the next 6 months, they will see firsthand how vast, majestic, and yet vulnerable and under pressure the ocean is. The ocean connects us. It forms an integral part of our human identity, history, culture, and livelihood. It provides the oxygen we breathe. It is a vital source of food security, supports our trade, and provides all sorts of socioeconomic and environmental benefits. But we need to better protect it. Climate change, marine pollution, overfishing, and overexploitation of its resources put the ocean under serious threat. For too long, the ocean was kept silent and taken for granted. It is now much better integrated in the international discussions, and we must always include it in our political decisions in favor of the protection of the environment. The fragmentation and the gaps in the current regime shall be addressed without delay. We must listen to science, which informs us of the dire state of the world's ocean and seas, and we must listen to all the stakeholders who offer their expertise and solutions. Healthy oceans are the condition for a healthy planet and a viable future. As Dr. Sylvia Earle often says, we need to protect the ocean as if our lives depend on it, because they do. Sport competitions are a unique opportunity to reach out to a vast community and to promote sustainable behaviors for people and for the planet. I have been advocating for many years in favor of reconciling humanity and the sea. All efforts contributing to recognize the ocean's role to enhance oceans protection, to enhance the implementation of states' obligations, to mobilize action and goodwill, and to raise awareness on the ocean's rights shall be supported. I wish you a very productive summit in Mindelo. Thank you.
Next, I would like to introduce an exciting initiative by the Ocean Race and the UN Secretary General's Special Envoy for the Ocean, Peter Thompson, named Relay for Nature. It's to help give the ocean a voice and connect environmental conferences, summits, and gatherings, and bring the ocean to the forefront of the conversation about solving the climate crisis. Please, a round of applause for Boris Herman.
Yeah, we have the huge privilege to do this fantastic sport of ocean sailing and racing, spending so much time on the ocean. This leg in particular was requesting everything from us and had two phases. First, we had to fight against a storm, upwind. And then after Gibraltar, we could sail downwind and enjoy the ocean. The first part, we were seasick, we were struggling, it was hard, it was cold, sails ripped and broke. And I think this is a bit the state we are in the fight for ocean preservation and against climate change, which is one of the biggest threats for the oceans. And we had to change our sails and our course and navigate to these winds that would then accelerate our path to here, to Cabo Verde. And I would like to kindly urge you, all leaders, to spread the word and spread the message that we take on this racing attitude that we as sailors out there perform and that is demanding everything from us. It's an existential experience and very tough to be at the top level in every moment. But that's what we all need to do in the area of climate action and ocean preservation.
Absolutely. And you as a sailor and a skipper, you have the closest relationship, one of the closest relationships to the ocean. What does the ocean mean to you?
Yeah, we have a very close relationship because most of us spend half of the year, more than 150 days, on the ocean, at sea. And we go through the Southern Ocean, also in this race, and many of us have been there before, myself included. The Southern Oceans are uncharted territory for humanity. Oceanographic data this is undersampled areas. We don't know enough how much carbon uptake is happening there, and we have the rare privilege to sail through there. Also in this race with our scientific instruments will bring back important data because the CO2 that's absorbed there then goes into the oceans, the CO2 that we emit with our fossil fuel burning, and it takes more than 100 years to really distribute to other areas of the ocean. So what we do today has an impact in 100 years. That's also a reason why we need to act. And there are probably as few people in the Southern Ocean that have been in space. So we really take this opportunity to our heart and try to bring back the witnessing these changes that we can observe out there.
Thank you so much, Boris. Now, would you do us the honor of handing the baton to Prime Minister Silva?
Thank you. I think it's a special gift to Cabo Verde, to this unique moment. We appreciate a lot. I'm going to follow you at the race just to the final in Geneva. Cabo Verde and São Vicente, thanks to all these organizations, especially the competitors that make it possible to come for this small country, but very large in terms of the ocean, of our maritime zone. Thank you. Obrigado.
Thank you. It's an incredible honor to stand here. And this Nature's Baton, it was conceived by Secretary General Special Envoy for the Ocean, Peter Thompson, and the Ocean Race. And it was an idea that just came up, and then COVID came, and we thought it would never happen. But in true Ocean Race spirit, we carried forward, and it was created by visual artist Tanya Kovacs out of driftwood from around the world. Inside, there are messages, presidential messages, moving from one location to another, from one conference to another, and it's moved by fossil-free means whenever possible. And to now hand this over to Secretary General Guterres is a true honor. So it's you we are carrying around with us. Thank you.
Well, as a matter of fact, I represent a generation that has largely failed the oceans. A generation that has waged a senseless war against nature, a generation that has accelerated climate change, and a generation that has damaged the health of the oceans in a dramatic way. So I'm very happy that I can give this token of hope to a representative of the generation that I count will be able to reverse the wrongs that we did, and to be able to rescue the oceans, will be able to defeat climate change, and will be able to rescue the planet and rescue us all.
Bom dia, eu, Odara Brito, da Escola Secundária Jorge Barbosa, e os jovens de Cabo Verde sabemos o quão importante o oceano é para o planeta e para todas as espécies que nele se encontram. Por isso, nós assumimos o compromisso de ajudar na proteção e preservação do oceano, pois, mais do que um recurso, ele é uma fonte de vida. Nós temos a plena consciência de que, se temos o poder para destruir, então nós devemos ter um ainda maior para salvar, proteger e respeitar o oceano. Nós somos frutos da natureza. O oceano é natureza, então nós temos de coexistir. Pois, se alguns tiveram a oportunidade de viver neste planeta com um oceano saudável, nós e as gerações futuras também temos esse direito. Juntos vamos ser campeões do mar. Let's fight for the ocean rights.
That's right, yes. I'd like to take a moment for all of us to have a collective deep breath. This is very important to us here at the Ocean Race, to connect with the water, to connect with the ocean, and also to remind ourselves to be present right now. And every time that I step foot in the ocean, I know that I'm reminded of the harmony and the balance that nature inherently provides. But in these moments underwater, I especially feel the power of connection. A few years ago, I was diving off the coast of Ecuador, near an island named Isla de la Plata. We had been diving all day, tough conditions, rough water, no visibility, cold. And then after the dive, I decided to jump back in without my gear, just for a moment, to cool off. As I jumped in, a sea turtle emerged out of the blue and came over to interact with me. I had my GoPro in my hand and got a chance to just be with this animal that's so majestic, so wise, and beautiful. To this day, I remember this moment so distinctly, and it's something that I cherish always. And whenever those tough days arise, when things feel hopeless, when things are hard, I think of the sea turtle, because we're all fighting for each other, and we're all inherently connected. Every living being on our planet plays a role and supports our well-being. So I'd love to invite you now to take 2 deep breaths. One more. Remember that that second breath that you just took was provided by the plankton, the phytoplankton out in the ocean. Now, I'd like to invite all of you to think of your own moment. When was the last time you were in the sea? What did you see? What did you experience? How did you feel? And I'd love for you to say hello to your neighbor, wherever you're seated right now, and maybe share that moment with them. And we'll just take a brief moment to do this, and we'll move on with our agenda. So please say hello to someone next to you and tell them your ocean story. All right, so we're moving on for our first panel. This is the Ocean Science and Literacy panel. We know that ocean science and literacy cannot be undermined when we're faced with critical choices to make our world a safer place to live in. And without baseline data from our scientists, we don't have an understanding of what we value and what's most important here on our planet. Research and innovation is key, but ocean literacy is what will enable everyone to live in more harmony with nature. During this panel, we'll explore some important ocean science research and literacy projects happening in Cabo Verde and the West African region, which have helped create a paradigm shift in local communities and their relationship with the sea and its keystone species. I'd like to welcome our esteemed first round of panelists to join me on the stage to speak about ocean science and literacy value. First, His Excellency, Minister of the Sea and Minister of Culture and Creative Industries, Abrao Vicente. Also, the Director of Research, Atlantic Technical University, Dr. Yara Rodriguez. Ms. Ivanice Monteiro, Ocean Science Center Coordinator of IMAR, as well as Bjorn Fiedler, Geomar Scientific Coordinator of the Ocean Science Center Mindelo. Welcome to the stage. Wonderful. Please have a seat. Okay, thank you. Great to see you all. Thank you so much for being here. We've got quite a few questions, but we'll keep it lively and fun. So, Minister, I would love to begin with you. In what way do you see that ocean science and ocean literacy contribute to the concept of ocean rights, in which Cabo Verde clearly supports?
Good morning, everyone. I'm very pleased to be here in the Ocean Summit in Cape Verde. But I would like to address in Portuguese, as we have the translation. I would like to speak in my own language. We can do it in English, but I think we can be more clear if I speak in Portuguese. Antes de mais, em Cabo Verde, nós temos o grande evento de literacia para os oceanos, é a Ocean Week, que acontece no final de cada ano aqui na cidade do Mindelo, onde envolvemos todas as instituições cabo-verdianas devidamente estruturadas para promover a política do mar, envolvendo as ONGs, mas fazendo de uma forma estruturada aquilo que é a política do governo, através do IMAR, com a parceria com a Geomar, que é a nossa parceira estratégica aqui no Centro Oceanográfico. Cabo Verde tem esta infraestrutura que é absolutamente inovadora e estruturante dentro daquilo que é a nossa sub-região africana, e temos uma parceira estratégica que é a Geomar, que traz a expertise tecnológica e científica. Também através do EMAR e da Universidade Técnica do Atlântico temos vários programas que são transversais a vários programas nas escolas, nas comunidades. E eu creio que a doutora Yara e os demais panelistas podem aprofundar. Basicamente, Cabo Verde está de uma forma muito concreta, específica, engajada na ação, através da ciência, para preparar a próxima geração, mas também para fazer com que esta geração consiga agir de imediato com efeitos muito práticos. Thank you.
Thank you, Minister. And yes, that's a perfect segue over to Dr. Rodriguez. You've been working in the ocean education space for some time now, so what is the current status of ocean literacy in Cabo Verde?
Hello everyone, my compliments to the high-level speakers and our ministers. I'm going to speak in English because they told me to do so, okay. Cabo Verde is aware of this necessity of us to create this literate society in terms of ocean subjects. Okay, so this is happening now. We are doing a lot, okay? There's a lot that is lacking. I'm going to tackle these issues also, but I'm going to be positive in this first part of my approach. So there's a lot of things that is being doing, that we are doing. So at the governmental level, we very recently signed the declaration in Washington of All Atlantic Research and Innovation Declaration. And this is a very clear commitment of us giving the first step towards developing concepts regarding to how we want to approach concerns regarding to ocean literacy, because it's one of the thematics that is approached in this declaration. So also, we are very committed in a global way with other organizations. We are part of All Atlantic Blue Schools. So this is a very innovative moment for our country, because we do have 3 schools in coastal areas that are approaching this narrative of blue schools that tries to promote the awareness for ocean concepts. And this is being done by the Atlantic Technical University, which is one of the stakeholders that have one of the maximum importance doing that, because we have the technical knowledge for that. But it's not enough. We do need to join synergies among the universities, ONGs, the ministries, So here, maybe I take advantage of the presence of the Minister of the Sea, and maybe I challenge you to let's boost this status. We do have 3 schools, the blue schools. These schools, we are promoting them with the support of Portugal government, and maybe we can do here a commitment, a more integrated and more precise objective commitment towards the increasing of the numbers of these schools. And even we have a lot of initiatives, not only this that Atlantic Technical University is doing, but also ONGs like Biosfera, Lantuna. Oh, sorry, I'm speaking very loud. Oh, okay. I'm speaking very fast, I'm so sorry. We do have other ONGs like Biosfera and Lantuna doing a great job regarding to the ocean literacy, but we still need to be together. We need to work in an integrated way. So I challenge the Minister of Sea, maybe you can talk with the other minister, for you to do a more serious commitment towards the ocean literacy in our country, the approaches that we do, okay? So this means that we need at some point to put the ocean literacy in our curricular program, okay? And not just the extracurricular program that we are tackling.
Dr. Rodriguez, that's a great point. Having a curriculum, yes, a round of applause. Having an integrated curriculum is very helpful, especially when it comes to inspiring future scientists, which we have scientists on stage with us right now, including Dr. Fiedler. Your science background, please just help explain a little bit about the role of the ocean and what changes we're seeing due to climate change and other effects here in Cabo Verde.
Yes, thank you for having me here. So we heard from the previous speakers that the ocean is of huge importance for every one of us, not only for the ones who are living at the coast or who are living on a large ocean island state like Cabo Verde. So it's important for everyone. And the ocean is, so to say, the centerpiece of the global carbon cycle. We heard about that the ocean is taking up the carbon dioxide which we are emitting, and up to 25% are being taken up by the ocean. But also the ocean takes up the heat that we are producing with our CO2 emissions. So the additional heat we are producing is being taken up by the ocean by over 90% that is being stored in the ocean. So the ocean actually can be seen as a kind of battery, a battery that we are charging with heat and carbon dioxide. So, and this charging comes with a price. And, but this battery helps us to slow down also the global warming. And the changes are often invisible to us. So for instance, we as a scientist, we measure and we uncover the changes like a warming ocean, a more acidic ocean, and the loss of oxygen in the ocean. And these invisible changes can cause some visible changes, like the habitats of many species are being changed. And we have shifts in the food webs, also with consequences on the economy, on the local fishermen. And and in addition, we have lots of human activities like pollution and the fish we are pulling out of the ocean. So it's changing, and the battery level, so to say, of the ocean is changing. And if we want to, we all know that the battery can be full or empty from our phones. It can be fully charged or discharged. And if we want to assess the battery level, so to say, of the ocean, we need to do research. So we need to go out to the ocean and do the measurements so that we can say where the battery is.
Got it, the battery of our planet, the ocean. Thank you very much. And connecting with the science, Ivanice, can you tell us a little bit about the species diversity here in Cabo Verde and climate resilience work that you're currently doing for IMAR?
Okay, thank you very much for this invitation. So to say that Cabo Verde, here in Cabo Verde we have a rich specific diversity, but considered weak in biodiversity. In biomass, I'm so sorry. So, English, you know. I would speak in Portuguese as our minister. But I'm kidding.
However you feel comfortable.
And this is due to our own characteristics as archipelagic islands. We have a considerable degree of endemism in Cabo Verde, and we are the only region in the whole West African coast with considered coral reefs. And this leading us to be classified as biodiversity hotspots. In terms of climate resilience, it is a quite sensitive issue. As our biodiversity has shown some signs of fragility, with some species considered endangered already. However, commendable policies have been created until now, during the years, in order to mitigate these signs of fragilities. Based on the scientific research carried on by the public institution as IMAR, that I'm representing, and others, public institute, and also together with NGOs. A good example that we can use is that now Cabo Verde is the second most important place in the world talking about the careta turtle population.
The sea turtle population.
Yeah. Yes, so careta turtle. Yeah. So we are doing a lot, but I think we all believe and we understand that we still have more to be done.
Lots to be done. Thank you very much, Ivanice. Wonderful. Minister, yes, please feel free. Can you tell us about any new policies or actions taking place here in Cabo Verde that will further uphold ocean rights? Ocean rights, that's our theme for today's summit and all of our summits. How do we work toward establishing ocean rights?
Yes, Cape Verde has a national plan to invest in the maritime investigation, and this center, GEOMAR, is a world example in how we can share information between a small island country as Cape Verde, how we can put a small country in the front line of world investigation when we talk about maritime investigation. Yesterday we have the pleasure to have a visit in the German vessel, one of the most important in the world. And we think the most important, you have access to the data all the international investigation centers are producing right now. And we cannot promote the literacy of the ocean if we, as an African and small island country, don't even have access to the information we produce. And in the last Ocean Week, we can see our national investigators with very innovative projects in investigation. We can share some of our victories in this area in the next, maybe in the next Ocean Week stopover here in Cape Verde. But we think the front line is the science. If we have the access to the data, we can promote correctly we can save the planet. But this is not utopia. We must have concrete action, and I think the government of Cape Verde, as you hear from my Prime Minister, we are in a very hard work to be in the front line of this hard work to save the planet.
Yes, absolutely. We have a lot of work ahead of us, but it's not impossible. And with great policies, we're going to be able to accelerate that process. Thank you, Minister. Yara, I love your passion about Blue Schools and making sure that curriculums are integrated with the ideas and the science that we see here in Cabo Verde. What interactions have you had with the Ocean Race Learning Program, which we're very proud of, and what activities are happening during the race stopover? And do you think that ocean literacy is important when it comes to understanding and recognizing ocean rights?
Okay. Maybe I will start for the last part of your
ocean rights
question, the ocean rights, because I would like to take and integrate everything that is being said so far regarding to the amazing capabilities that our country has and all of that. So if we don't know something, we don't have how to conserve, to preserve, and to fight for it. So it's clear that ocean literacy has a lot to do with the ocean rates. So as soon as we put a lot of effort, our energy, our commitment towards ocean literacy, we will be able to see that, yes, indeed, we are doing some practical action towards a more precise principles of the ocean rights. Okay, so regarding the activities that the Ocean Race is developing for all this journey. So it didn't start now, so it started back in 2021, the first time that we presented the learning program, which is an amazing program that reflects all of this journey that the sailor has during their sport, right? Their journey. So they are doing the race in the sea. So they see in first hand everything that is happening, right? They see the pollution, the loss of biodiversity. So the programs reflect this importance that those sailors give to these ocean literacy subjects, okay? So we did the first time for the Ocean Race, a program for primary school teachers. It was very good. Since today, they are talking about how good it was and how they didn't even know that it was possible to teach subjects about marine protected areas, biodiversity, and other subjects in mathematics, for instance, or in geography, or in other discipline that is not biology per se. So those are very interesting programs, and they have a very nice set of resources, also translated in Portuguese, that we are trying to start using now in our country, starting with different schools. So for the Ocean Race Villa, we do have at this instant happening a workshop for the ocean rights. Okay, so if you want to go there, you're just invited. And we also have a lot of other educational programs that is going over there. So I would also like to say that Team Malaysia also is doing a very nice work, because they are having this interaction with some schools here. So they are also having right now a workshop near the learning program set. So we do have a lot of other educational activities going on. We have a science fair. We do have Biosphere right there, which also have this commitment with the ocean literacy process. So there's a lot of things going on. So just go and visit.
Absolutely, yes. If you haven't already gone, please see us at Ocean Live Park, where you can experience everything from the science fair to Biosphere setup and lots of other presentations and music. So please come through. Now, when it comes to education, again, we need scientific samples, we need data, we need baseline data. Bjorn, in what way do you see scientific sampling done by the Ocean Race sailors contributing to science globally?
Yeah, I think so that the scientists have teamed up with the society, with the ocean racers, for gathering and collecting new data is a good idea, because major parts of the ocean are so remote. It's so hard to get the data out of from the ocean. And so Boris Herrmann has mentioned it, for instance, the Southern Ocean is very remote, and it's a data poor region. But West Africa, it's basically the same. Not much data exists in this region. The boats are contributing to it, so they measure carbon dioxide, and they contribute to make this gap smaller, but they can't solve it alone. We need to put more effort into that, because decision makers often asking the scientists, what's the state of the ocean, how does it change, and what do we need to do to sustainably manage it, to protect it? And as scientists, we can only say, if you want to protect the ocean, you need to understand it, you need to study it, you need to have the knowledge about what you want to protect. And at the same time, you have hundreds to thousands of commercial vessels in the region here operating, from international fishing fleets to small-scale fisheries, from shipping, oil and gas, and they are all kind of beneficiaries of a healthy ocean, the services the ocean is providing. So it means there's a high need to better protect and manage the ocean. And just to give you an example from the research side, so in these more or less 20 sub-Saharan West African countries, there are only about 12 research vessels in the region. And from these 12 research vessels, there are about 6 fully operational. So this is in contrast to the commercial fleet. And I'm asking, how should the countries protect and sustainably manage the oceans if they cannot go out and study the ocean? So there's something is wrong there. And I think this calls urgently for some action, especially also from the private sector, to not only invest into blue economy programs, but also think about how to invest also in the marine research and the knowledge creation, because you need it to protect and sustainably manage the ocean. And also, we have to call for not only short-term programs, one-off training workshops, a project here, an equipment donation there. We really have to think in long-term programs, long-term sustained programs, otherwise it won't work. And we need to collaborate, we need to have multilateral programs, really, so that the countries can better cooperate with each other and that we can share resources, limited resources we have here to do ocean research.
Thank you, Bjorn. Yes. So for our final question of this portion of our panel, I'd like to ask Ivanice, what are the future prospects of coastal programs here through IMAR?
IMAR, as the national technical authority, as mentioned by our one of the boarding members, is in the field of oceanography and fishery research, has a future prospect that is to have, in short, medium, and long term, a systematic and sustainable program for the coastal monitoring, including our resources and our coastal zone. And for that, we have some infrastructures, like this one, we are OSM. We also have laboratories at IMAR. We have our research vessel, Islandia. Also, we have our ocean observatory that is contributing with climate data since 2005. I'm fine? I'm all right? So, however, we still have some needs. And I think it's important to say that Cabo Verde needs to improve our knowledge in terms of coastal bathymetry, to improve our knowledge in internal marine circulation pattern, about our seamounts, and about our stocks assessments. And how to achieve that? I think we all believe that investment on science has to be done. Not only public investments, we need also to involve the private sector. And this investment needs to be done in terms of capacity building, high technology, because to do science, we need that. And for sure, continue promoting the national and international cooperation. Otherwise, science cannot be done. We all have to collaborate. To finish, I would like to say that to protect, we need to know. And so, science evidence are highly required. So, and then we can say that we really give a voice to the ocean.
Well said. Thank you very much, Ivanice. And thank you, Yara. Thank you, Bjorn, for joining us on this panel. So I'd like to invite Dr. Corinne Almeida. She's a director of Wascal program and professor at Atlantic Technical University. Anna Agostino from Mir Puri Foundation. She's an advisor. And also Tommy Mello, founder and president of Biosfera and biologist. Welcome to the stage. Please, a round of applause for our panelists. Welcome. So, Tommy, you set up the first environmental NGO in Cabo Verde, Biosfera. From what we know and what you know and have experienced to date, what do you think is needed to have a thriving, sustainable blue economy in Cabo Verde?
Thank you, Danny. I take some notes because this is too important to forget some words. So for me, the first of all is to identify the gaps in terms of sustainability. So waste management is one of the priorities for sure, because we still have dumpsters in open skies. So we need to change that urgently. Ensure best quality in terms of transportation and connection between the islands. It's important, but also between Cape Verde and the rest of the world. We just have connections, a viable one, between Cape Verde and Europe. And because of that, we are losing important markets in Africa and also in the United States. So we need to change that. We need better policies and regulations, and implementations programs for those are really, really essential to take out of the paper and put into the action. We are using scarce resources we have in a bad way sometimes. For example, we have more than 40 marine protected areas, but just 2 or 3 have management plans. Santa Lucia is the biggest one, and we have the first management plan prepared more than 20 years ago and never been accepted. So we need to change that, because the marine protected area are constantly depleted every day. And for me, the most important thing, we have to do it together. In my humble opinion and understanding, the government sometimes are trying to do the things alone and pushing away important internal partnerships. We are all Cape Verdeans. We all, I suppose, all of us want the best for Cape Verde. So let's act as one.
Thank you, Tommy. Yes. Now, Dr. Almeida, so tell us about WASCAL. It stands for something, a long term, and how is it helping ocean literacy and scientific capacity in the region? It's on.
Still not open? It's open now? So, good morning to all, and thanks a lot for the invitation. WASCAL stands for West African Science Center on Climate Change and Adapted Land Use. It was created in 2012. It includes, until now, 11 West African countries. It's mainly founded by the German Federal Ministry on Education and Research. So WASCAL focuses on climate change and climate change adaptation and mitigation with actions in agriculture, biodiversity, land use and waters, economy. WASCAL is being supporting decision makers in the region by climate service provision, fostering capacity development and science development as well. Increasing the society's resilience here in the region for climate change. It's quite for sure that WASCAL and its sister SASCAL in the Southern Africa are the main commitment of a development country to respond to climate crisis in the vulnerable countries, like the ones here in West Africa. So back to the ocean, in the framework of WASCAL, the Institute of Engineering and Marine Science, IGMAR at the Atlantic Technical University, we created a master program on climate change and marine sciences. We started in 2019 until now. We have 3 batches, we trained 3 batches. That is a challenge in a region where, for example, we have very few programs, undergraduate programs on ocean science, but with the strong support of a great network of institutions and researchers, especially IGMAR, Tunen Institute, IMAR. So we are proud of the results that we achieved until now. So most of the students are graduated or are at the end of graduation. Some started their PhD programs. Some are start working in NGOs, so contributing to develop science and ocean management here in the region.
Excellent. So yes, I mean, once again, it's another reminder that research is important, but also cooperation and collaboration is essential in order for us to understand the area of the ocean here in West Africa. And that begins with expeditions. And I would love to move on to Anna, and you can tell us a little bit about the exciting findings that you found on the Mirpuri Foundation's expedition here in Cabo Verde in 2019. And are there any other plans from the foundation here in Cabo Verde?
Well, of course. Well, first of all, I'd like to thank you for having us here today. And obrigada sobretudo ao Governo de Cabo Verde por nos receber tão bem. Mora à Beza, é o que eu sei, a arte de bem receber, que é sempre assim cada vez que chegamos a Cabo Verde. But going back to your question, yes, we did an expedition in 2019 in the island of Sol. The purpose was to enhance the scientific knowledge of marine species and biodiversity in Cape Verde. And it really opened the door for what we can do, what can still be done in this amazing location, in this amazing country as Cabo Verde. We did, it was an outstanding expedition. It brought experts from several countries, including local from São Vicente, from the University of Mindelo. And it was outstanding in the way that we were able to, and you can see the photos here behind me, we were able to discover a new genus of sea slugs and to actually identify several new marine species, which is outstanding in a way, in a world that everything seems to be done or discovered already, but there's lots to be discovered here in Cabo Verde. So that was pretty amazing. We all spoke about research in the previous panel, and same here now. I think that all the data, this scientific data, is key to enhancing the knowledge, because we need to know to act. And the purpose is to continue our work, hopefully in partnership with many organizations locally, and perhaps even the government of Cape Verde, but continuing supporting marine conservation here in Cabo Verde.
Thank you so much, Anna. That's wonderful to hear that the Mirpuri Foundation is investing in this area of the world. And the ocean itself as a whole, humans have only explored about 7% of the ocean. So as you said, there is a lot to discover, a lot to explore still, especially here off the coast of Cabo Verde. Now, Tommy, I'd love to find out from you, how do you think communities in Cabo Verde can become more resilient as an island nation when it comes to the current climate crisis? And do you think that recognizing the ocean's inherent rights can help?
Okay, so to be resilient to the climate crisis, the communities, they need to achieve the three axes of sustainability. So economical, sustainable, and environmental. So we need to play at their level here in Cape Verde to bring them to make better choices. We need to teach them, to empower them to use the resources in a sustainable way. A way that gives them condition to do the best, not just for today, but also for the future. We have everything here in Cape Verde, everything we need. We have a fighting and intelligent people. We have a blessed geographic position. We still have an amazing natural resources. But of course, we also need to the world leaders to stop, and I'm sorry to use this word, sometimes some demagogy, because they are polluting our beaches with thousands of tons of plastic every year. They are catching all our fish in exchange of some coins. And at the end of the day, they stand their hands, but never really push us out of the hole. So to have resilience in terms of the world, we need change, and sometimes this change needs to happen from the top to the bottom.
Absolutely. Thank you, Tommy. So, Minister, having seen all of this impressive work done by local NGOs and research groups, how do you see the cooperation between the government and non-governmental organizations that can become better? How do you see it improving?
Thank you for this opportunity to be among the NGOs. First of all, it's always unfair to be part of a government and be on stage with any kind of organization, NGO, scientific organization, because we don't have all the answers as government. And we are not enemies, we are not competing. We are different roles when we are talking about the environment preservation, the ocean. And maybe I could ask my colleague Gilbert to join me on stage, but I will try to handle it alone. First of all, it's necessary to analyze how is the international context, the funding of the NGOs, and countries for different thematics. When we talk about environment and oceans and plastic combat, normally the international organization funding more the ONGOs than the government, because this is a established thing that they do better than the states. I don't agree at all. I think we play different roles, and we must be funding not in the same level, but we must understand the role we as a government we can play is very different. I can say stronger, but we have some kind of power of influence among all the national institutions, the scientific, the ONGOs, the international partnership. So it's not necessary to be like we are competing. So I think the role is cooperation. As in all other areas, in the environment preservation, to deepen the dialogue. I think Tommy and Biosphere, as the first ONGs in Cape Verde, have a long experience and hard experience trying to negotiate. But the state institutions are trying to adapt to this new agenda, is running against the time. And I think the Ocean Race is a great opportunity as the Ocean Week. We need to stimulate the cooperation and dialogue. We need to get to get the access to the data, as I say in this panel and the other panel. And the scientific data is key, as we can agree on this stage, to accelerate the action from the government, but also to empower the ONGOs in the society. Here in Cape Verde, I must recognize the ONGOs are doing the job. Maybe all the government, since the Independence Day, we are trying to figure out how we can adapt it and do what is supposed to do in the right time. But as a member of this government, I have to recognize the tremendous work Biosphere and Simili and other organizations in Fogo have the preservation of the turtles. So this is a joint work. We must. We are not competitors, because this is the national. It is national waters. So we must understand the different role we play, and always put the universities, the investigation, in the front line to guide us as a government and also as a ONG's member. I think the society can recognize both the importance of our work.
We all have a role to play, indeed. Thank you, Minister. I received a note from our friends who are helping translate today's event, and they're asking that we speak a little bit slower. So I'm doing my best as well to speak slow. So just as I've know. But Corinne, I'd love to move on to you. From your point of view, what is needed to help drive ocean science in West Africa and Cabo Verde?
In terms of our institute, as I mentioned, we have this master program. We are working also to have, in the coming years, a PhD program. So we are working to invest, to have better, more development in research. So first of all, we must continue improving in human resources. But the capacity development in the ocean science, likely in any other sector, must be sustained by political measures to develop the ocean economy and ocean governance. So as I mentioned, the number of institutions, the number of graduate programs and undergraduate programs are still very few in the region, in Cape Verde, and the region is not enough. So the agencies for marine protected areas, so we need to create a real ecosystem to absorb these human resources that we are working with, and we need to work. We need to work more. So besides this lack in development in ocean science, we have an accelerating process in economy, in coastal economy and marine economy, likely in fisheries, construction, recreational activities. So we cannot have this different velocity in science, between science and economy. So we need to move as fast. We need to increase our movement. So the lack in science and capacity development, so jointly with accelerating development, so is not a good ingredient for the sustainable development for blue economy that we want, and our governments and in the West African regions, other governments are committed for. So we need to invest more. So another ingredient that is not always well fit with the marine and coastal development in a good way, especially in the region, is because the economy development is mostly driven by foreign companies, so that mostly, it's not all the times, but do not have the necessary commitment with the communities and with the environment in the region. So for example, if you take the example of fisheries, 80% of fisheries in the economic zones, exclusive economic zones in the regions, 80% of the incomes goes to the foreign countries, and less than 20% of these incomes. So how we can expect how these countries can guarantee the sustainability of this research? So because to do that, we need to have more science. So of course, we as country, as region, we need to commit for the guarantee of the sustainability of these resources, but also is a common duty to commit for that, because it's not just us that are taking use and taking profit of these resources.
So to make sure that stakeholders, especially foreign stakeholders who come to use the resources here in Cabo Verde, they need to play a role in making sure that ocean science and literacy continue to happen because you're using the resources here. Is that correct?
Exactly. Thank you.
Fantastic. Thank you for making that point, Corinne. And speaking of industries, there are other industries that are emerging, including the airline industry. And I know that Mr. Mirpuri, he's an entrepreneur in that industry. And through the foundation, you also have a vessel, the Ocean, which has a boat. You have a vessel within the Ocean Race, racing during this edition of the Ocean Race. What's the drive behind this? What's the purpose? And how is it supporting ocean literacy and ocean rights?
Well, Paulo Mirpuri, the president of the Mirpuri Foundation, is here today, so you might be able to answer and have that conversation in person with him during the break. But yes, for sure, he is a gifted businessman, obviously, but his vision goes beyond that. You know, when you can be really good at something, but good is only good when you give back. So that's the purpose behind the Mirpuri Foundation, is to give back. It was created and working in several different areas, 6 different areas, one of them being aviation, the other one marine conservation. And as a nonprofit in Portugal with its maritime history, ocean has been obviously since the get-go a big priority, and sport as well, in a way that it's a unique platform to raise awareness. It is a unique way to engage with people, to be able to change mindsets and actively let them know how we can all make a difference and the need to protect our planet. So that's why that was the message behind the Turn the Tide on Plastic team in 2017. Also with the Racing for the Planet in the Ocean Race Europe in 2019, last year, and now again with the Sprint Cup. So basically it's the 3rd time the Mirpuri Foundation is involved with the Ocean Race because of this uniqueness in a way of raising awareness. On ocean conservation and marine conservation, the Mirpuri Foundation has been leading initiatives and projects to make the world a little bit more sustainable, one step at a time. And also recently a member of the Ocean Rights Alliance, so that way we can work towards a declaration, a universal declaration of ocean rights. Also, I think that when you ask of education, of course, 100% education, it is always part of the work. We all need to teach, we all need to learn from each other. That's how we can actually make a difference, and that's how we give back one step at a time, I think.
Excellent. Thank you, Anna. Okay. So we're continuing our Ocean Science and Literacy Value Panel, and before we go, we have a minute left. I would love to ask each of you, if you can say it under 60 seconds, your vision for the future in 2030 for Cabo Verde here, but also your vision for the ocean. And Tommy, I'd love to start with you.
My vision for Cape Verde for 2023 is that we will follow the commitment not just for the civil society, but also for the government. And we will try to do it and to act as one. As I say, this is the way, and this is why Cape Verde will win.
Anna?
Well, I would say that the key word here is action. We are done with words, pretty much. So now action is the word, and that's why I hope and expect for Cabo Verde in this year.
Thank you very much. Dr. Almeida.
A systematic program on data gathering in different levels, in different marine components, in order that we can base our decisions on science.
Thank you, Dr. Almeida. And Minister Vicente, yes, what is your vision for Cabo Verde in 2030?
First of all, I would like to say welcome to Prime Minister António Costa.
Welcome, Prime Minister.
Welcome to the Ocean Summit. As a country, as I have said, we are full committed with the international agenda, and we are full committed to have a common agenda with the ONGs and common platform to funding Mr. Minister of Finance, because I think it's our responsibility also not just to have access to the international funds, but also as a country, I think we are committed to mobilize all the funds we need, and it's necessary to funding the ONGs, but also to put the ocean in the front line of our agenda. I think in 2030, Cape Verde will be an example in the world as a country who provides part of this development through the ocean and through our Morabeza people. Welcome, António Costa, Mr. Prime Minister. Thank you to having us on the stage.
Thank you, Minister Vicente. Please, a round of applause for our panelists. Thank you so very much. So I hope you all received quite a bit of information there. That was our second portion of our ocean literacy and science panel. And now I am honored to welcome His Excellency, Mr. Prime Minister of Portugal, António Costa, and he's going to give us a keynote speech. Please join us on stage, sir. Thank you. Oh, no, I'm Jamaican.
Senhor Primeiro-Ministro, meu caro amigo Ulisses Correia da Silva, senhoras e senhores ministros, senhor Presidente da Ocean Race, excelências, minhas senhoras e meus senhores. Permitam-me que comece por saudar calorosamente a realização desta Ocean Race Summit por ocasião da passagem por Cabo Verde desta que é a mais antiga e emblemática regata à volta do mundo. A agenda oceânica tem ganho um maior ímpeto e dimensão nos últimos 5 anos, abordando as questões do mar em todas as suas vertentes, na sua dimensão ambiental, social, económica e também geopolítica. A proteção dos oceanos e da sua biodiversidade é uma causa global. E sendo global, só faz sentido ser levada a cabo através de uma abordagem multilateral centrada nas Nações Unidas. Através de um processo participativo que envolva não só os governos, mas toda a sociedade civil e assente na universalidade daquela que é a verdadeira Constituição do Oceano, a Convenção das Nações Unidas sobre o Direito do Mar. A necessidade de agregar todos os atores relevantes em torno do tema dos oceanos foi uma das razões pelas quais Portugal foi co-organizadora com o Quênia, no ano passado, da 2ª Conferência dos Oceanos das Nações Unidas. Da conferência resultou uma forte declaração política, a Declaração de Lisboa, intitulada O Nosso Oceano, o Nosso Futuro, a Nossa Responsabilidade. Importa agora concretizarmos as nossas responsabilidades e caminharmos em conjunto por uma verdadeira agenda de proteção dos oceanos, atingindo os compromissos que não constam não só desta declaração, mas os que estão assentes no Acordo de Paris e na Agenda 2030. Uma estratégia credível para cumprir as metas da descarbonização e fazer face às alterações climáticas passa, obrigatoriamente, por desenvolver uma transição azul da parte da muito conhecida transição verde. Não podemos atingir os nossos objetivos de emissões zero sem ter em conta o papel determinante que os oceanos desempenham na regulação do clima e como grande sumidor de CO2. É necessário assegurar o adequado financiamento destas transições, de indústrias intensivas em carbono e poluentes, para setores que assegurem a sustentabilidade do ambiente e a prosperidade económica, não deixando ninguém para trás. Foi por isso que fizemos da economia azul uma componente fundamental da estratégia de desenvolvimento de Portugal. A economia azul tem sido verdadeiramente não só resiliente, mesmo nos períodos adversos que temos vivido, mas que está, sobretudo, a crescer a um ritmo mais forte do que o conjunto da nossa economia. Estamos a apostar em áreas com grande potencial de crescimento, como a biotecnologia, as energias renováveis oceânicas, as pescas, a aquacultura ou o ecoturismo. Queremos também promover o empreendedorismo, o emprego e a inovação nesta área, nomeadamente através da operacionalização de um hub azul, uma rede de infraestruturas para a economia azul, com um investimento inicial de 87 milhões de euros. A boa notícia, Sr. Ministro Abrão Vicente, é que, para além de incomodarmos os Ministros das Finanças, podemos também, através dos oceanos, gerar receitas para os Ministros das Finanças e para o conjunto da sociedade e da economia. Não, juro que não foi ele que pediu. Temos de aumentar o financiamento das ações baseadas nos oceanos à escala global. Foi nesse sentido que, à margem da Conferência dos Oceanos, dinamizamos o primeiro Fórum para a Economia Azul e o Investimento. Uma oportunidade única de pôr em contacto direto investidores e promotores de projetos na área económica dos oceanos. Em 2022, este foi mesmo o maior evento global da economia azul. E é por isso que nos comprometemos a realizá-lo novamente este ano. Convido-os, assim, a todos a estarem presentes nesta segunda edição do Fórum sobre a Economia Azul e o Investimento, que se virá a realizar no princípio de julho, na região de Lisboa. Por outro lado, em Portugal temos feito, nos últimos anos, uma forte aposta nas energias renováveis. As energias renováveis representam já, hoje em dia, cerca de 58% da eletricidade consumida em Portugal. E queremos ir mais além, temos de ir mais além, e por isso fixámos-nos a meta de até 2026 aumentarmos dos 58% para 80% o total da eletricidade consumida em Portugal com origem em fontes renováveis. Para um país como Portugal, em que a vasta parte do seu território é mar, não faria-se por isso sentido que não estivéssemos também no pelotão da frente das energias renováveis oceânicas. Criámos uma zona livre tecnológica em Viana do Castelo, dedicada à investigação de protótipos e tecnologia, nomeadamente energia eólica offshore flutuante e tecnologia de conversão das ondas. É também em Viana do Castelo, no norte de Portugal, que está em operação desde 2020 o Wind Float Atlantic, o primeiro parque eólico marítimo flutuante da Europa continental e o primeiro semi-submersível do mundo, atualmente com uma pequena capacidade de 25 megawatts. Em junho, a quando da segunda Conferência das Nações Unidas sobre os Oceanos, anunciei o nosso objetivo estratégico de atingirmos os 10 gigawatts de capacidade produzida por energia eólica offshore até 2030. Este compromisso foi um compromisso sério e hoje posso aqui anunciar-vos que esta semana abriremos a audição pública dos pontos das propostas de delimitação das zonas de implantação desta exploração do windfall offshore e que até ao último trimestre deste ano iremos lançar o primeiro leilão internacional de energia eólica offshore que terá lugar em Portugal. Conto por isso, não só com os participantes, como também com os participantes no fórum que iremos organizar sobre investimento na economia azul, para que sejam participantes ativos neste leilão e o tornem tão competitivo quanto possível. Sr. Primeiro-Ministro, minhas senhoras e meus senhores, quero desejar boa sorte a todas as equipas que participam nesta corrida e desejar que cheguem todas a bom porto. Também como estas equipas da Ocean Race, todos nós, sociedade civil, setor privado e governos, temos uma árdua tarefa pela frente, de modo a dar resposta aos desafios do oceano. Este também é um trabalho de equipa. Se todos juntos, cada um no seu ponto do barco, fizer a manobra certa para procurar o vento de feição, conseguiremos chegar em segurança e a bom porto. Espero, por isso, que levemos a bom porto esta grande expedição, a salvaguarda deste nosso grande património comum, o nosso planeta azul, o planeta dos oceanos. Muito obrigado a todos e muito obrigado especialmente ao Governo de Cabo Verde.
President of the House of Representatives, Prime Minister of Cabo Verde, Prime Minister of Portugal, Ministers, President of Ocean Race, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, it is with great pleasure that I join you here today at this important summit on the beautiful island of Cabo Verde. This island is the most fitting venue to reiterate my unrelenting support to the ocean race in its pursuit for a universal declaration of ocean rights. Today, I am so happy to be in Cabo Verde, standing shoulder to shoulder with like-minded partners, furthering the cause to pursue a path leading to the adoption of a universal declaration of human rights, of ocean rights. I take this opportunity to extend my sincere congratulations to His Excellency Ulisses Correia e Silva and to the government of Cabo Verde for hosting this summit. Mr. Prime Minister, thank you for your invitation. I strongly believe that a universal declaration of ocean rights would complement all international efforts and processes that oversee maritime-related human activities to maintain a sustainable equilibrium between conservation and sustainable development. On the blue economy, a concept that Seychelles has been proudly championing, in order to appreciate, one must recognize that Seychelles and other small islands are not just seeds. We are also recognized as large island ocean nations, lions, as we say, with extensive, exclusive economic zones. The EZ of Seychelles is over 1.3 million square kilometers. This presents seas with large oceanic spaces with incredible potential for economic development. However, caution must be exercised while exploring this. We believe that the blue economy is the next frontier for sustainable development. It is an approach aimed at promoting and strengthening sustainable ocean-based economies, which in turn strengthen food security, restore and build resilience for planetary health, and create and support equitable and sustainable livelihoods. We in Seychelles have done the following, and I would like to share it with you. Firstly, we forged a path and showed the potential for how countries can harness capital markets for financing the sustainable use of marine resources through the sovereign blue bonds, designed with the support of the World Bank, the Global Environmental Facility, and the Prince of Wales Charities International Unit. The principal objective of this bond is to attract private investment to finance a transition to sustainable fisheries. Secondly, marine spatial planning. We have protected over 30% of our ocean with the aim to restore the ocean's health, strengthen our fisheries, and build resilience against climate and biodiversity crisis. Thirdly, Seychelles has led the way to establish a new initiative called the Western Indian Ocean Resilience and Prosperity Initiative in partnership with the Nairobi Convention and Necton and my own foundation. In November 2021, all 10 nations of the region unanimously agreed to join this initiative to co-create an ambitious new regional ocean strategy and policy to continue to support sustainable ocean development underpinned by science-based management and protection. It also seeks to build resilience and to create a sustainable blue economic plan underpinned by long-term sustainable financing to drive growth. In conclusion, ocean rights, the blue economy, the blue bond, marine spatial planning, and a wide range of positive global activities all show us what is possible and gives us a compass bearing on our journey ahead. In ending, let me commend Richard, Johan, and their superb team for the tremendous strides that you have made thus far. And thank you for inviting me on this journey to accomplishing what needs to be done for the sake of humanity and posterity. Ocean rights to secure the health and productivity of the beating blue heart of our planet that sustains life on Earth. Thank you for listening.
So we'll move on to our next speaker. Here to speak about why blue finance matters both on a local and global scale, please help me welcome Valerie Hickey, Global Director for the Environment, Natural Resources, and Blue Economy with the World Bank. Welcome, Valerie Hickey.
Thank you very much, Danny. Prime Minister Silva, Excellencies, friends of the ocean, Before I start, I just wanted to really shout out a congratulations to Cabo Verde. You have roared loudly as a lion, as a large island ocean nation here today. Sincerely, congratulations. It's so seldom that we get together, bureaucrats and boaters, the science community and the sports community, to talk about the ocean. And as I've sat in the audience today and hearing from such amazing people, the ocean calls to our imagination. There's a romance to the ocean. Whether when we heard about the amazing biodiversity just here in Cabo Verde, the fact that even as our world gets smaller and smaller, we're still finding new things in the ocean. It's amazing. There's a romance around the fact that it's in the ocean. We still hunt and gather, a tradition that we've had as humans for thousands of years. But just as the ocean calls to our imagination, at the World Bank, it calls to our mission, which is to help create a world without poverty. And to do that, we have to integrate development, climate, and nature. And we have to do that, unlocking the power of Mother Ocean to help us meet that mission. But I have to admit that even as we acknowledge the importance of the ocean to integrate development, climate, and nature, even as our ambition is to do more of it, there simply is not enough action on the ocean. Let me just give you the example of food. We live in a world today where 828 million people don't know where their next meal is coming from. In 2023, 49 million people are starving to death. Starving to death. That's 10 million mothers and fathers who today are sitting, themselves hungry, watching their children die. That's not okay. And this isn't just a problem of COVID, climate change, and conflict. This isn't just a problem of the last 3 years. In 2019, there was 690 million people who couldn't put a meal on the table. And even then, that was 50 million more people than were hungry in 2015. So this has been a problem for the past 10 years, for the past generation. And one of the reasons it's a problem is because we're not talking enough and doing enough about blue food, about the importance of fisheries and aquaculture to put food on the table. We know how important this is, and yet we're not doing enough. And it's not just about food. It's also about jobs. In sub-Saharan Africa, by 2030, 75 million jobs are going to be related just to fisheries alone. Now that's food and that's jobs that are directly under threat because of our lack of action on the ocean, because of the way we use the ocean as a dumping ground, and because of climate change. Every year, fish are moving towards the poles 7 kilometers. If you take that and couple it with overfishing, countries are losing access to those food stocks, to fish. So countries who today depend on putting meals on the table by having people, when they have no money, when they have no job, when they have no food, are told to go fish, are going to lose that opportunity. In Nigeria, for example, by 2030, the science tells us that over half of its fish stocks will no longer be there because of overfishing and climate change. Think about that. Think about the number of people who are going to go hungry as a result. Think about the number of jobs that are going to disappear. Think about the hit to the Nigerian economy. And that's just one example. And that's why blue finance is so important, because if we're going to bridge the admittedly very large gap between acknowledging that the oceans matter for development, our ambition to unlock the power of Mother Ocean to deliver jobs and GDP and welfare gains and food on the table, and to do action, we need more blue finance. And we need it in 3 places, and I was so glad that Minister Vicente talked about the importance of domestic resource mobilization, because too often at these events, we hear about international public finance. We hear about money from the World Bank or from bilateral agencies. Of course that matters. But it matters that our money is used more strategically, that it's used to do what private finance cannot do. It's used to do what governments don't want to borrow for. That means for policy reform, for building strong and credible institutions. And we have to use international public finance to show proof of concept, to build pipelines of investable deals that will attract private capital. But domestic resources are absolutely key, because as Minister Vicente said, and it was repeated by Prime Minister Costa, the ocean is not a cost center, it's a revenue generator. It's an engine of the economy. So it has to be invested in. And domestic resources are critical. In a world where almost 60% of nations are at or near debt distress, when every country this year is working very, very hard to avoid a recession, every penny counts, and yet too many countries are spending public money, public budget, with one hand to save the ocean, and with the other hand on subsidies that are destroying that same ocean. That's just nonsense. That's just bad economics. That's just bad public financial management. So we have to change that. That's why, by the way, we are so excited about the WTO delivery of its agreement on reforming fisheries subsidies this year, because that is going to help countries align policies across the whole of government. And we don't talk enough about what the WTO did. This is only, since their beginning, the second ever agreement they've made, the first one with environment at its heart. But when we talk about domestic resource mobilization, we're not just talking about public budget. We have to talk about local private capital as well. Because too few banks within countries know how to lend money in the ocean sector. They don't know how to price risk. They don't know how to treat collateral or repayment cycles differently. So we not only need to make sure that our public budget is more efficient, we need to make sure that private money in country is more liquid, so that we can build out a strong small and medium-sized business ecosystem. And of course, thirdly, we have to look at international private finance. We have to think about capital markets. How do we do more blue bonds, done first and foremost in the Seychelles under the direction of President Faure and others? How do we make sure that the capital markets are willing to trade interest rate and basis points for improving a healthy ocean? And how do we build the data and metrics around that so they can measure it and they can avoid blue washing? And how do we make sure that there is strong regulations, clear rules of the game, and credible institutions that will attract international private capital to come and support the industry of Cabo Verde and other countries, and other lions especially? And that's why, just as the ocean calls to our imagination, just as it calls to us in the World Bank in terms of our mission, we want to put out a call to action for us to finance more on blue, so that together we really can unlock the power of Mother Ocean to end poverty, to share prosperity, and to build a healthy planet. Thank you.
So for our next panel, we are going to be joined by His Excellency Prime Minister, Deputy Prime Minister of Cabo Verde, and Minister of Finance, Olavo Avelino Correia. Welcome to the stage, sir. Pleasure to meet you. You may have a seat over here. Thank you. We also have Christopher Lillyblad, UNDP Development Economist for Cabo Verde and Guinea-Bissau. Hello, Christopher. And we'd also like to invite Miguel Monteiro, Chairman and CEO of the Cabo Verde Stock Exchange. Welcome. Please, a round of applause for all of our panelists. Good to see you. Awesome. So, Minister, if you don't mind, I would love to begin with you. And just give us, again, we ended the last panel with this question, but what's your vision, not only for Cabo Verde in the ocean region here, but what's your vision for the blue economy here in Cabo Verde?
Thank you. Okay. Thank you. Let me speak Portuguese. Muito obrigado. É para mim privilégio estar aqui neste evento, porque combina muitas coisas ao mesmo tempo. É a primeira vez o Ocean Race na África Ocidental. É a primeira vez em Cabo Verde e é a primeira vez em São Vicente. Por isso, essas três combinações fazem deste evento um evento mítico e com grande impacto para Cabo Verde e para o mundo. O oceano, já foi aqui dito, é mais do que um recurso. O oceano é uma fonte da vida. No fundo, o oceano é o sistema de suporte à vida. Precisamos do oceano para a saúde, precisamos do oceano para a alimentação, precisamos do oceano para a conectividade, precisamos do oceano para a indústria, para criar empregos. O oceano é a fonte da vida. Em segundo lugar, é o oceano que nos fornece alimentação, nos fornece o emprego e nos fornece a subsistência. Em terceiro lugar, o oceano auxilia no combate à mudança climática e às alterações climáticas. E para um pequeno país insular, arquipelágico como Cabo Verde, o oceano desempenha um papel extraordinariamente importante. Em quarto lugar, o oceano é o lar de uma vasta biodiversidade e nós precisamos do oceano para regular o clima e para regular o ambiente. E por último, o oceano oferece o bem-estar para a humanidade. E é nesse quesito que nós temos que olhar para o oceano nas três vertentes fundamentais. Primeiro, é preciso, por um lado, a literacia do oceano, para podermos compreender a sua importância. Não se pode proteger se não amarmos. E não podemos amar sem conhecermos. Falamos muito da literacia financeira, mas é fundamental que coloquemos na agenda a literacia em relação ao oceano. Em segundo lugar, a liderança. Porque a questão do oceano, às vezes nos parece uma questão longe. Alterações climáticas, biodiversidade. A liderança tem a obrigação de convencer os cidadãos e o mundo da urgência, da necessidade de intervirmos em relação ao ambiente e em relação ao oceano. Assim como aconteceu em relação à Covid-19, tem de acontecer também em relação às alterações climáticas e em relação à proteção do oceano. E aqui, como foi aqui bem dito, a liderança é muito importante. E por último, a legalidade. Nós temos de proteger o oceano. Temos de proteger o ambiente com um quadro legal forte no contexto interno e no contexto mundial. E o oceano é uma fonte económica. O oceano, Sr. Ministro, não é um passivo. Temos muitos passivos, mas o oceano é um grande ativo ao serviço de Cabo Verde e ao serviço do mundo. Se nós focarmos para valorizarmos esse ativo, teremos aqui oportunidades para Cabo Verde e oportunidades também para o mundo inteiro, no plano económico, no plano de emprego, no plano da saúde, no plano da indústria, mas também no plano da qualidade de vida para todos os cidadãos cabo-verdianos e todos aqueles que procuram Cabo Verde como destino de investimento, mas também para fazer turismo e para habitar. Muito obrigado.
Thank you, Minister Correia. Thank you for giving us that comprehensive overview of what the blue economy can look like when it has all the elements working together. Now, Valerie, I'd like to ask you the next question. Can you describe in more detail the active role you envision small island developing states in further developing the blue economy on a global scale?
Thank you, Danny. You know, the role of SIDS and of lions has already been critical to doing this. If it wasn't for the Pacific, for example, and the Pacific Island nations, we wouldn't have an SDG 14. It was their work and the constituency of like-minded lions coming together who reminded the rest of us and coastal countries and landlocked countries that we cannot achieve the SDGs without having one focused on the ocean. So we already have evidence that SIDS and lions really matter. But we often find that needs must, meaning that countries that may be small tend to be incubators of innovation. And we've seen that in SIDS. The first blue bond happened in a small island developing state in the Seychelles. Same with the first debt for nature swap, debt for ocean swap. We've seen small islands be the places where marine spatial planning has really been tried and tested. And this is so important because marine spatial planning is a gift from the lions to the world. The idea of taking these 4 steps, building a constituency, making the case, making sure that everybody's on board to understand why the oceans matter and what they can do. Going beyond building the case to making sure that you can identify where are the gaps in regulation, in institutions, in infrastructure, and in finance to move from ambition to action. Marine spatial planning is what SIDS have shown us helps identify what you do where and balance development and conservation. And finally, marine spatial planning is how we are held mutually accountable. And this is what Lions, through the SDG process, through the marine spatial planning proof of concept that they've shown is so important. We have to hold each other accountable because the ocean is a shared asset. What we do in Ireland, I'm Irish, affects Cabo Verde. If we don't manage our trash, it ends up here, and it ends up in the Caribbean, it ends up in the Pacific, and it ends up in Southern Africa. What you do here, in terms of managing your fishery, affects what gets on the plate, not just of your citizens here, but in other countries. And I think that's been the power of Lions to really make those cases.
Absolutely, well said, yes. I love what you mentioned about being an incubator of innovation. Lions, large island ocean nations, yes, they are incubators of innovation, and Cabo Verde is one of those innovators. We have an incredible new platform called Blue X, and Christopher, you're here. Can you just explain to us what Blue X is and UNDP's part in that, and what are the implications for sustainable ocean finance within the context of sustainable development goals?
Thank you very much, Danny. It's really a pleasure to be here. So maybe just allow me to provide some context before I really pinpoint where Blue X marks the spot on the global ocean finance map. I'd just like to recall very quickly how the UN Secretary General this morning again reiterated that we have a morally bankrupt financial and economic system that continues to have severe inequalities and injustices for big ocean states. Also reiterating the climate change and biodiversity crisis that we're confronting that I don't have to go into much detail about because we've already had so many exposés this morning about it. But the time has really come for radical and decisive change in a race against time. In Cabo Verde specifically, we were dealing with a series of macroeconomic shocks that predate COVID. So these include the Great Recession, the EU sovereign debt crisis, and then COVID hit with massively rising poverty, with a tourism sector that accounted for 40% of GDP that was very vulnerable to external disruptions like we saw. And to some extent, we were laying all of Cabo Verde's eggs in one economic basket. So what we started doing as part of this recovery process is thinking about possible solutions, thinking about how sustainability, both environmental and financial sustainability, could be embedded in this recovery process and really ingrained in the DNA of what essentially became Cabo Verde's Ambition 2030, which is a strategic vision that elaborated for its sustainable development goals. And here in the blue economy really emerged as an SDG accelerator. meaning a driver of economic diversification for the country and a driver of inclusive and sustainable growth. However, compared to tourism, investment in the blue economy was still marginal. So where would this investment come from? So we got together with our colleagues from the Bolsa de Valores de Cabo Verde to think about financing solutions to this great challenge. But we didn't want to just create one single financing instrument, not just one blue bond or one ESG fund. No, we wanted to create an entire ecosystem where we could promote the convergence of the supply and demand for sustainable finance, bringing together private, public, domestic, and foreign resources within one platform, where blue, green, social, sustainable, all types of financing that could promote the blue economy would flourish. So the objective here was really creating a sense of financial autonomy to escape these injustices and inequalities of the financing system, to promote the independence of Cabo Verde, moving beyond aid in its quest for financing the blue economy and sustainable development, and having a decentralized mechanism where a market-based solution could draw on local knowledge, capacities, and interests. Altogether so far, and Miguel will surely speak more about this, it's been a market success with 5 bonds already issued, totaling over 35 million US dollars, and meaning that for every dollar that UNDP invested in this platform, we've already mobilized over $50 for sustainable finance. And it's certainly something we want to keep leveraging.
That is absolutely brilliant. Thank you, Christopher. Now, Miguel, would you elaborate for us and tell us about your perspective about how BlueX developed here in Cabo Verde and what were the processes involved from your perspective?
Thank you, Danny. Indeed, first of all, I would like to tell the audience how you can reach the BlueX, because we have talking about BlueX, but you don't know how to reach it. Through blu-x.cv. blu-x.cv. And BlueX, like Christopher said, is a platform for listing and trading sustainable instruments, meaning blue bonds, green bonds, social bonds, sustainability bonds. And it all started with the signing of the Memorandum of Understanding with UNDP. That was the seed of everything, and I would like to appreciately tell that UNDP was the seed for it. Obviously, when you are doing new stuffs, you have to go to the best. And meaning go to the best, we had training in finance, in sustainable finance, and this was given by the Luxembourg Green Exchange, one of the leaders in terms of financing sustainability. Obviously, we had to create and hire human resources with knowledge in this area, and so the BlueX unit was created inside the BlueX, inside the stock exchange Cabo Verde. A third step, I would say that we cannot do this all by ourselves, so we had to create partnerships, strategic partnerships, meaning, for instance, we got to, obviously, to NDP, but the European Union, the World Bank, the Luxembourg Stock Exchange, the government, obviously, and because this kind of project cannot be done with just the stock exchange or just UNDP. And here, I appeal to everybody that think that can give some approach in this project, please reach us, because it's not enough. Then we had to create transparent criteria for labeling blue sustainable bonds, and this I will head for the next question because it's a major milestone. The last but not the least, we had a second memorandum of understanding with UNDP where we think that we will deepen all the results that we already had in the near future. Thank you.
So you mentioned blue bonds, Miguel, but Christopher, can you tell us about how blue bonds are helping to uphold the ocean's inherent rights?
Yeah, so essentially when we issue a blue bond or a blue financing mechanism, what we're trying to do is incentivize the use of resources for economic activities that have a sustainable outcome, that are aligned with the ocean rights principles that were outlined this morning by the chairman of the Ocean Race. The idea really being, and someone here had a book called Blue Mind. And I haven't read it, I'll be honest, but I saw the title and it was such a great encapsulation of the point that I'm trying to make here, which is that when we make financing available to people in local communities who can use that financing in order to develop, say, their fishery project, or create a sports tourism in coastal zones offer for tourism. We're creating incentives for people to think sustainably while they're pursuing their business objectives. And it's precisely this kind of attitude, this kind of mindset that blue bonds can generate in local communities, creating this form of cognizance that may have not been there explicitly before. And when you aggregate that over entire communities, countries, regions, then all of a sudden you're having a local impact that corresponds to this global mindset around ocean rights. And this is exactly what we're trying to do, trying to incentivize using the Blue Bond financing framework. And as Miguel mentioned, today we're launching the very first Blue Bond in Cabo Verde. So this definitely sets a historic precedent for the country. And ultimately, the next step in the Blue X project is to regionalize this platform and therefore also regionalize this mindset.
Well, that is very exciting. Yes, congrats on the launch of the first Blue Bond in Cabo Verde. And you mentioned the book Blue Mind. I would personally recommend it. It's a wonderful book written by Dr. Wallace J. Nichols, which mentions just how do we transform our own minds on a day-to-day basis to think more about the ocean in every aspect of our lives. It's a great book. Now, Minister Correia, I'd love your reflection on ocean rights in terms of sustainable economy for Cabo Verde, and how is the work in your office right now related to ocean rights?
Thank you very much. Nós, ao nível do governo, estamos a trabalhar com Ocean Race, mas ao nível de uma agenda para a economia azul, para a proteção do oceano e para a melhor gestão das alterações climáticas e da biodiversidade. Mas eu volto à questão inicial. A questão mais importante em relação à necessidade de protegermos o oceano, de valorizarmos o oceano, tem a ver com a consciência nacional em como isto é importante, em como isto é relevante e em como isto é urgente. Porque se não houver esta consciência nacional, por mais que encontremos soluções de green bonds, blue bonds, mercado de capitais, isso não será suficiente. O primeiro engajamento em relação ao futuro do nosso país, olhando para a economia azul, tem de vir da sociedade cabo-verdiana, dos cidadãos cabo-verdianos, com uma forte liderança da nação cabo-verdiana a todos os níveis. E nós temos que colocar o tema na agenda pública. Cabo Verde, para investir no ambiente, precisa de volumes importantes de financiamento. E nós temos que colocar este tema permanentemente na agenda pública, interna e internacional. Por isso também a importância do Ocean Race. Quando falamos de fundos climáticos, quando falamos de fundos para resiliência e sustentabilidade, quando falamos de fundos para promover a transição energética, a transição digital, para promover a economia circular, para garantir o nexo entre a energia, a água e o saneamento, precisamos de volumes importantes de recursos, também a nível internacional. E nós temos de olhar para esse desafio como ser um desafio que tem por pilar essencial a solidariedade, porque o ambiente e o oceano é um bem da humanidade. E nós temos o dever de proteger o nosso oceano enquanto um bem coletivo, para que o oceano, ele próprio, nos possa proteger. E o Ocean Race pode ser um palco importante, um veículo importante para colocar esses temas na agenda pública nacional, também nacional, porque este evento tem um impacto nacional de grande alcance. Sr. Ministro do Mar, se eu tivesse dúvidas em relação à importância do mar, com este evento, elas dissiparam todas. Portanto, também o Ocean Race tem um impacto importante ao nível da promoção deste debate no quadro nacional, que é essencial para atingirmos a escala internacional. Eu quero deixar aqui um apelo a todos os parceiros. Contribuamos para que Cabo Verde tenha um fundo relevante para investir naquilo que tem a ver com a sua própria proteção. Transição energética, transição digital, economia circular, garantir o nexo entre energia, água e saneamento. Uma economia de baixo carbono tem a ver com a proteção e a preservação dessas ilhas maravilhosas que são as ilhas de Cabo Verde. E todos nós temos o dever de poder colaborar para que tenhamos recursos financeiros para garantir estes investimentos e essas transições. E Cabo Verde dá o seu firme engajamento e compromisso também aqui, em como os recursos todos serão utilizados para promover essas alterações que nós aqui fizemos referência e para ter um país de baixo carbono, com uma transição energética garantida no horizonte de 2030 e 2050, mas também para colocar o mar ao serviço do futuro. Eu espero que este evento tenha um grande impacto a esses níveis e nós estamos engajados enquanto Governo, mas também ao nível do Ministério das Finanças, para continuarmos esta parceria forte e frutífera com o Ocean Race, em prol de Cabo Verde, em prol do mundo, em prol da proteção do oceano, para que o oceano nos proteja a todos, nos proteja Cabo Verde e proteja o mundo inteiro. Muito obrigado.
Thank you, Minister Correia. We are certainly pleased and honored to be a catalyst here as the race, is here in Cabo Verde. We want to be the spark to help push that big wave of change in Cabo Verde where the ocean mind will come and rise. So thank you very much. Now we'll end our panel with you, Valerie. One last question here. Speaking on ocean rights and recognizing the many ways that the ocean contributes to our collective livelihoods, how do you envision the future of the blue economy here in Cabo Verde and beyond?
I think there are two things that the future of the blue economy need and can accomplish. The first is that Cabo Verde, other island nations, other coastal countries begin to develop looking seaward. Because too many ocean states, too many coastal states have developed with their backs to the sea. I can say that even in countries like Ireland, we're an island, and yet we don't think about our waters. We hadn't for decades. And so developing with an eye to the future, putting sea at the service of the future, Deputy Prime Minister, as you said, is so important. So I think that's one thing, because it'll help rebalance what is currently a messed up international economic order. Today, profit is privileged. People are seen as inputs to making profit happen, and the planet is just a vast dumping ground and place where you can chew it up and spit it out. And I think thinking about the blue economy forces us to reorder that PPP equation. It forces us to put people first. That people can have meaningful jobs with full bellies, that they live in safe shelter, and that they can live lives full of promise and dignity. Based on living in a healthy planet, because we know an unhealthy planet makes people unhealthy. It takes away jobs, it takes away opportunities for development. And if we do that right, if we put people first, if we put a healthy planet second, we know that profits are still going to be made. We never have to sacrifice profit. We just have to reorder how we think about it. But the other thing that's critical to make this happen is we've talked a lot here about financing blue, whether it's capital markets, new blue bonds, and congratulations to the Seychelles, whether it's talking more about how we use domestic resources, but we also have to talk about how we blue finance, not just finance blue. How do we make sure if less than 3% of financing for the SDGs is spent on the ocean, how do we make sure that the 97% of SDG financing doesn't hurt the ocean? How do we make sure that the trillions of dollars that aren't used for any purpose in the SDGs don't undermine the ocean? How do we build on efforts, whether it's the network for greening the financial sector, where central banks are trying to make sure that their domestic financial sectors are not undermining the health of the oceans, because they know the ability of corporations, the ability of industry to repay loans in many countries is dependent on a healthy ocean. Financial sectors in countries like Cabo Verde have a large exposure to, for example, fisheries and nature-based tourism. They're not going to be able to repay their loans if the fish disappear, and if the beaches in the ocean is so dirty, nobody's going to visit. So we have to do that. Efforts like the Task Force for Nature and Climate-related Financial Disclosures that are looking to make sure that private companies have to show that what they're doing is not undermining the ocean. But to do all of that, I want to emphasize something that we've heard again and again today, which is the importance of data and metrics. We can't do any of this without robust metrics that are responsive to change, so we can actually show and see when things are getting better or getting worse, that are built on robust science so that they're not exposed to the charge of blue washing. There's too much of that already. And that finally are politically and financially feasible, so that good science and good implementation do not end up bankrupting a country or a community.
Thank you so much, Valerie. Now, I said that was the last question, but I realized I skipped over one question for Miguel. Miguel, if you don't mind ending with your take on the policy changes. I know you wanted to specifically talk about that were required to implement blue bonds here, and then also end with how folks in the room can connect with Blue X and get involved.
Thank you, Danny. There's been some policy changes. First of all, we had our regulator has approved the regulation to issue green bonds, social bonds. This was in 2021. But the major milestone that we can say, because like you said, we had a big ocean state, was a couple of months ago in November 2022, when there is a presentation of the blue taxonomy and the regulation for issuance of blue bonds, meaning there are not many countries in the world that have blue taxonomy. We are ahead of this, and hopefully it was done with a partnership with the Atlantic Technical University. And this makes me proud to announce here today that we are going to have, and today it starts the subscription date to the first blue bond in Cabo Verde, the International Investment Bank Marine and Ocean-based blue bond. The purpose of the issuance is to enable the development of structural projects related to the blue economy. There is going to be dedicated a minimum amount of $500,000 to financing small-scale loans for individuals and small business in the sustainable maritime and fisheries sectors. And since it's a public offer, and since we have such a distinguished audience and distinguished guests, what I can say, I hope everybody has their wallet here, because obviously it's a good opportunity to invest in something that is going to be for major importance. But obviously the International Investment Bank will also seek to establish partnerships with microcredit institutions, Cape Verdean, to channel financial resources to lend to small entrepreneurs to coastal areas, meaning that with these resources, we hope that we will increase revenues for this small business, and hopefully we decrease, we reduce poverty, meaning the SDGs. This is a nice opportunity for all this audience to invest in blue financial, sustainable financial here in Cabo Verde. And obviously it's thanks to this partnership that we have with the International Investment Bank that we appreciate very much. Thank you, Danny.
Thank you, Miguel. Excellent. So Miguel, Valerie, Minister Correia, Christopher, thank you for joining us on this panel. Please join me in thanking our panelists. It was wonderful. Thank you.